Rex. Obviously, I'm the Managing Director of Radio Parts, but it gives me great pleasure to introduce Rex Halverson.
Close enough.
Is that
Halverson, yeah.
close enough? Now, Joe, I think, has witnessed and been part of Rex's presentations in the past, and what I was saying is actually a really great opportunity that we've got to have Rex down here from Queensland, not only to introduce Thor, the brand, which is really new, relatively new to Radio Parts, and especially in terms of since we've opened up the showroom, and just listen to the sales tips and the sales techniques that Rex can explain throughout the speech.
Thank you. It's
just as valuable as an explanation of the product itself, because the sales skills obviously relate to everything that we have here. And I was just mentioning with Rex before, quite often with Radio Parts we have a customer base that come in here, they know what they want to do it quickly, and they want to get out. So just keep in mind, we're now, I'm sure we'll get through this hopefully very short snap lockdown, and as we do and we get back to normal again, you would have found in recent months we've had more and more opportunity to use those sales techniques. So take it all in, and I'll leave it to Rex. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So actually that touches on things as we relearn how to do business, right? And some things change, but some things will always remain the same. But the opportunity actually is different, and in some ways better, because people are looking for new ways to increase their income and get a return on their time investment, right? They need to maximize every customer situation. So that's not just talking about you here on the sales floor, but it's also on the phone with your customers, but it's also your customers and their customers. A lot of your business is done with people who are doing service for other people, right? And they need to maximize their time as well. And in some cases, they need to do it differently, all right? So there really is a different opportunity with Thor. And I say that in 100% sincerity. This is a major opportunity for you and your customers, okay? So this isn't just about another product that's good, maybe a little better than someone else's. This is about a product that you could literally offer to almost every customer you talk to, and your customers could offer to their customers, and give those customers value and make more money at the same time. A true win-win. And the opportunity is growing. So many of you know me from Sanus, make high quality, premium wall mount solutions, right? But what times are you going to offer Sanus? Only with TV sales, right? With power, how many customers are plugging the product in? How many things are at home or in the office or in the workplace are they plugging in? The opportunity is universal. It's much bigger, much broader. All right, so I'm going to start here, and again, I'm going to talk to you guys, knowing that you have a retail floor primary role, but I also know that we're filming here, and there are going to be customers that look at this that are installers, et cetera. So I'm going to try to cover kind of both of those angles, if you will. So if you're talking to an installer, or you are an installer, how many jobs can you do in a day or a week or a month, right? There's a limit. There's some kind of hard number. What if you could make a significant amount, $20 to $200 more, let's say, with each job? Same number of customers, same number of installs, you make more money. And you can not just sell one Thor product, but once you understand the benefit, or you've explained the benefit of filtration, not just surge protection, but filtration, you can show them that they need it in their laundry room, their home office, their AV system, their kitchen. Power products can be sold throughout the home, so you have a larger opportunity. So every one of your trucks should have a few of these on it to take advantage of the opportunities. And when you're in their home, that is the perfect place, because you actually see what they need, where the opportunities are, and they don't perceive you as a salesperson. They perceive you as the expert. Okay? Now I say this to you as well. You're telling them, so it's one step removed, but you need to help them understand that opportunity is not only larger than they think, but growing every year. All right? And even if they're right now selling boards, and you sell thousands of boards over there, If you convert some number of those boards to the premium level, you do a service for the customer and you make more money with the same investment of time, as do you. You're going to work a certain number of hours. How do you make more money? Talking to the same number of customers working the same hours a day. And this universal attachment opportunity is how you do that, okay? Now, a theme throughout this is good for you. They're good for you as an installer. It is good for the customer. They will benefit. The benefit may be substantial, it may be subtle, but it will in no case do anything but the best possible result in terms of the power. So combining higher performance power spike handling along with filtration, which is why I would like you never to refer to a Thor product as a power board. Why? A power board is that thing for $10 or $20. You got them over there, Bunny's got a bunch of them, right? This is not a power board. Yes, it does surge, but it's a whole nother thing in terms of performance, power management solution. And they can run up to $3,000. Not a board. Something very different. That's what we're talking about here. Okay? So, more income, less headaches. Danny and I were talking earlier about a problem that occurred that may be power related. There are many, many problems out there in today's technology that people don't realize power either is the problem or a component of the problem. And cleaning that power up, preventing the spikes and surges and the variations from coming in will potentially solve a lot of headaches, reduce the number of times the customer calls and says, oh, it glitched again, it failed again, it stopped downloading, it's always going slower. These kind of problems often have their root in dirty power. And we're going to come back to that as we go through. So I want to go back to that opportunity. How many products do you sell that plug in the wall? I want you to count them all right now. It's a lot. Yeah. Leon actually would know. You probably put them all in there by hand. Okay. So the question isn't, by the way, are people buying power boards? They are. They're buying them by the thousands. All right. You go into your home, you probably have power boards in several locations. The question is, are they getting the best one? Are they getting the one that's most appropriate for their real needs? Are they aware of the differences? And the answer is, probably not. Very few people know why or how power management solutions differ. The other is, are you taking advantage? So if they're selling them, are you maximizing your share of that, as well as giving them the education they deserve? Now, problems in the industry, one is that race to the bottom, okay? These products all look very similar because in many cases they're coming either from the same factory or they're certainly coming from the same technology pool, all right? There's very little differentiation. There is no emphasis on performance. The driving factor then is, how do I differentiate? I can make mine $1 cheaper than you can make yours, all right? So that drives the perception of the market down. They don't understand their differences because there really aren't a lot of them in this level, okay? Other than the number of points and things of that nature. The second, if you actually Google fires and power boards, you might be surprised what you find. The number one cause of electrical fires is actually the power board. In many cases because it's been overused, too many things plugged into it, but it actually caught on fire. All right? So there is a safety component in here, right, that people are not generally aware of that matters with power products. Okay. So, who's Thor? Australian company. 20 years, specialist, no Me Too products. We don't make headphones, we don't make cables. All we make are the dozen or so Thor products that you see on your website. This is a specialist. All they do is power solutions. They've been around over 20 years. They're well known in the industry. All designs are from Australia and New Zealand, which means it's from a different gene pool, if you will, of technology. So these are products that have performance differences, have unique designs, and are from a local company that does nothing but power. Make sense? Thor Technologies. All right. They are also have range that includes rack mounting, network solutions, in-home. This box doesn't show you really, but you can plug this into your power board and have surge protection, or your switch outside and have surge protection throughout the home, okay? So they're more than just the boards that you may have seen in the store. And the product looks good, the packaging looks good, and that's important. It's not the substance of it, but it just helps justify in customers' minds when you're showing it to them that this is a product. Now, I've talked about this as an opportunity. I want to give you a couple of numbers that might help you see that opportunity differently. $2 billion industry and growing. So globally, surge protection devices are a $2 billion industry, and they are accelerating because of the change in the power that I'm going to come to in a moment. Second thing, 30,000 Thor Technology units were sold by another retailer in 2 years. Why were they so successful? They're here in Australia, same price points. They sold 30,000 2 years. What was the difference? Oh, you read it. Dang. Such a clever guy. This is really easy stuff. And by the way, the interaction helps me a little bit. All right? You at home can play along too. So 30,000 units simply by asking. Is that going to work every time? No, of course not. Winning here is 2 out of 10. Okay? They can say no 80% of the time and you're still winning. And they're still winning. But you have to offer it. Because how many customers are going to come in and say, you know, I budgeted about $400 for power. Do you think that's enough? Do you get that one a lot? If you're doing well if they come in and say, what's your cheapest, right? At least they're talking about it. But most of your customers, they're not thinking about it. They didn't budget for power. They didn't do any research. They don't understand the differences. So who's going to have to bring it up? Thank you. Thank you. It's the mask thing, isn't it? All right. By the way, about 1,000 a week are being sold right now in the Australian marketplace, just to give you a sense of the opportunity out there. And which of these products can't be offered a Thor with? Even things like Fitbits, they plug in to recharge, don't they? Okay, so it's not much. There's a couple things, but not much. And it's not just about AV and IT. It's also about kitchen, laundry, refrigeration. It's also about home office. It's also about small office, light industrial. The opportunity is huge to sell better power solutions if there is a difference and it justifies. True? So we now need to justify whether there's a difference. And for this, I got to go into a little bit of the technology. You okay with this? Keep in mind that I'm going to share you a depth of stuff that you will not tell your average customer, but understanding this will help you understand why a little number on the box makes the difference it does. So first I'm going to start off with why is there an urgent need for more and better power filtration devices? There's 4 reasons. Number 1 is the increased sensitivity of the chipsets inside everything today. All right? We have refrigerators, washers, and dryers, let alone TV sets and other products that do so much more than they ever did before at a higher level of performance in a smaller package. How did they do that miracle? They did it, of course, by taking that computer chip and inserting it into everything, right? Including washers, dryers, coffee machines, hair dryers, etc. There are now these tiny little circuits inside of everything we sell. And they are great because they deliver you more performance at a lower cost in a smaller package, but they're more vulnerable than the older, bigger, more robust designs. So more sensitive chipsets mean more sensitive products. Higher performance comes with a cost. Second, we have a lot more external surge events coming into our home and office than we ever did before. You've read about all the climate change stuff. It's just not just the external storm events. It's the power infrastructure itself in Australia is aging. In some areas, it's really, really atrocious. The amount of surges and spikes that are being delivered by the power company. By the way, which is why they tell everybody online to buy a surge protector. Third, how many of you have more products plugged in the wall at home than you did 5 years ago? Quick, count them up. You've got 50, 100 things plugged in the wall? You go in an old Queenslander, how many points did you find in the room? One, sometimes, right? Sometimes. Now you go into a new build home, there might be 2 or 3 or 4 points in just one spot, right? And then it's on every wall because they know how many more things we plugged in. Why does that matter? Because everything plugged in the wall also sends a spike into the electrical system every time it turns on. And if you've got 100 of them, you now have 100 little transients that are going on all the time. Does that matter? Yes. In the same way a light bulb burns out, your computer chips can be damaged. When does the light bulb burn out? The last time you flick the switch. You flick the switch hundreds of times, it sends a little jolt of electricity through the filament, and then one day the filament says, bye-bye, I'm gone. Think about that chipset with that tiny, tiny little circuit, 100 things turning off on it. It doesn't have to be a major surge. It could be a cumulative of small spikes that just over time, very quietly, created a weak spot in the chip. And one day you went to use it and something didn't work, or the whole thing didn't work, just depends where in the chips the problem occurred. And you won't know why. There was no flash of lightning, there was no puff of smoke, there was no noise, it just quietly died. All right, so 3 things: more sensitive products, increased external surge, increased internal surge, and 4, how much we're asking of our high performers. This is really on the AV and IT side of things more than others. But we now have 4K going into 8K with Dolby Atmos and all of these other, increased black and increased colors. There's a heck of a lot of data. We're now asking these chipsets to interpret extremely quickly. Add a little bit of electrical noise, add some spikes into that, what do you think might happen? Those chipsets might struggle to recognize the voltage difference between a 1 and a 0. And if it doesn't recognize the voltage difference, it may say, stop downloading, or slow the download. You're watching Netflix and the picture starts to go really crummy, right? Like those 1980s pornos you used to watch. Edit that one out. Right? What's happened there is probably there was not enough clarity with the 1s and 0s. The error correction circuitry couldn't keep up. It said, please reduce the data flow so I can handle this. And it gets worse from there. So 4 reasons why you need filtration today more than you needed filtration 5 years ago. Make sense? By the way, up in the upper right corner there is a little image that illustrates if you had an electron microscope at home, you could figure out that you had a power surge problem in the chip. But if not, all you know is it didn't work anymore, okay? But that's the level we're talking about there. So, more vulnerable. By the way, I said already, the power companies will tell you this. Everything I've just said, you can read for yourself on the power company websites, including the fact that there is a lot of EMI and RFI noise, as well as the chipsets are more vulnerable, and there are spikes coming from the other products, and that's what a chip looks like on the inside. You can see why it's vulnerable. Okay? And I mentioned EMI and RFI. There's far more noise coming now from other devices in the home. Those 100 things you plugged in the wall don't just have a turn-on transient, they also inject electrical noise. And you know what copper's really good at? Transmitting signal from room to room to room. You know what else it is? It's a wonderful antenna. You have copper wiring running throughout your building or your home, and that copper wiring can pick up radio stations. Can you hear that? That's a radio station being picked up by your wiring. Can you think that that does any good to the chipsets in your products? To have that noise from all your appliances, all the external radiated devices, you all have smartphones, you are injecting more noise into the electrical system than ever in history. And you're sending it to a product that is more sensitive and higher performance requirements than ever in history. Can we see maybe what the problem is? And why we might need something different? By the way, this is most noticeable in AV and IT, right? You have a screen or a speaker. All right. It can affect mechanical products. It is less likely to be perceived there. It's more visible and audible here. But it can And it's reflecting the change when we went from analog to digital. Digital is much more sensitive to some things than analog was. With analog, if the signal strength wasn't there, it still gave you a signal. It might get fuzzier. But with digital, if it can't read that 1 or 0, it's done. It drops. It's gone. It stops operation completely or slows it down. Now, I do talk about power to people all the time, and one of the things I would request that you avoid is using lightning as your sales presentation. Because lightning is the least likely phenomenon for them to have happen, right? Obviously, it's a major problem if it does occur, but it's very unlikely. How many of you have had a lightning strike in your home? You and me, okay? That's it. The rest of you, I say lightning, you don't have any value for what I just said. You dismiss it immediately. I've never had lightning at my house. I don't need that better surge thing. How many of you have 50 or 100 appliances in the home? You're living with mom still. Okay, I get it. But she does. All right, so you hear what I'm saying? It's a universal thing. We all have a lot of appliances. We all are hooked to the same power grid. That's the bigger source of the problem, not lightning, okay? But the other thing that people will say is, I have a whole home surge protector. No, you don't. You have a circuit breaker. You have a circuit breaker. A circuit breaker does not protect equipment. It protects people. It works exactly the opposite. It does not measure excess. It measures drops. And when your voltage drops, it figures, hey, maybe somebody is short-circuiting and going to fry. I better shut down. But if those were surge protectors, nobody would be selling them, right? Now, you can buy a whole home surge arrestor, they call them. They're a few hundred to a few $1,000s. But guess what they don't protect against? Inside the house. So they might help you with the external problem, but they don't help you with all the other stuff that's in your house. We'll come back to that. Okay. I put this up here, by the way. The tendency is to think about this with computers and AV equipment, because that's, we get it, all right? It's surge protection. Some people even know about it in relation to those categories. What about my washer and dryer? What about my coffee maker? What about my bread machine? And think about that. If they all use the same chips, they all have higher performance requirements, all right? They are all equally vulnerable now. Oh, that's a washer. And you probably can't see, the picture's very dark, but that's a circuit board right there with several integrated chips sets on it. Now, how many times would the customer in these situations know that Thor could solve the problem? So I'm going to let you read that right there. 2 different problems. I had scrambling when my washing machine turned on. Guess what that was? Right? Washing machine turned on, it sent a transient through my electrical system, got to my AV system where I could see the problem, and it changed the performance. Went through the house wiring. Same thing over there, running machine. Okay? These are obviously bigger devices which send a lot more energy through. In both cases, they took this. This is the least expensive Thor solution in the line, $129 retail. And what did it do to the problems? It's a filter. It's not a surge protector. Yeah, it does surge protection, but it's a filter. It filters out the noise, giving you the performance out of the equipment plugged in. By the way, it works in both directions. If I had plugged the running machine into this, it would have done the same thing as it did by plugging the TV into it, isolating it from the running machine. Okay? Here's another one, same C2. I would love to understand what happened here. The power point exploded and burst into flames. Don't know what was going on there, but the computer was untouched, plugged into this. Here's another one. Severe electrical storm. I had $30,000 worth of audio. Oh, God, can we find this guy? $30,000 worth of audio. Big storm. Thanks to the Thor Smart power boards, all that equipment survived without any damage at all. What's the next line there? Anybody read out loud there? I have now installed all areas. Okay. How about this one? I'm proud owner of a lifestyle home theater, flickering lights. I'm very happy to say the crackling through the speakers is gone. How about this one? I had a history of equipment damage. The moment I plugged the A12 in, It made my system worth the money I have spent on it over the years. Is this a happy customer? Is this a customer that's happy that somebody told them about it? So not only are we talking about you making more money, we're talking about you doing something that potentially could have results like that. Will this happen every time? Of course not. It happens to do with the equipment and the severity of the problem and all these other factors. But will it do any harm? Could it potentially solve problems they didn't know were power problems? Yeah, Danny and I were talking earlier about an install problem that's involving multiple parties, and it's possible the problem is at least partly power, if not completely. And it's involving HDMI signal transmission. It can. All right? By the way, all of those are on the Thor website. Those are customers that have written in. So who needs Thor to be presented? Which of your customers deserve it? Right? Or is it just the people spending $2,000? Or the people coming on Thursdays? So if they say no, they say no. How many deserve the opportunity to know that there is something better? 100% offer is the magic. Remember that other retailer sold 30,000 in 2 years? I'm not trying to compare apples and apples here because it's not. They had more storefronts, et cetera. It's a different methodology, but it's possible to sell a lot of these if you offer every time. The number of times someone will say to you, hey, did you forget to show me something? Was there something more that was really profitable for you and good for me that you meant to tell me about?
So many.
Yeah. That's not like it happened very often, right? So if you, from this point on, don't mention Thor, that's on you. It's okay for them to say no. It's not okay for you not to give them the option, now that you know that there is something. Now we're going to talk now about what makes Thor different. So that last bit was about why do you need better filtration and surge protection. This is what makes Thor different. So you've got a lot of products over there. There are products all around the marketplace, $15, $25, $35. And I'm saying this is $120. This one here is about $150. Why? What could possibly make it worth that? Hard to tell when you look on the outside. It's even hard to tell when you look at the box, though some of you know things like Joule ratings, et cetera, which, by the way, mean nothing to the average customer. Those are the differences. Now, I want you to memorize this slide. You all got it now? Oh, okay. I actually have, I don't think it's there, but I have given this laminate sheet, or will give this laminate sheet, by the way, so you can study on your own. I will also give the PowerPoint presentation later, but I'm also going to make it easier for you. All of those things, so better noise filtration technology, better energy absorption, faster acting, when it starts acting, connected equipment warranty for peace of mind, and some additional bonus bits can be expressed in one phrase. When you order your hamburger, you frequently also get chips. When you get your fish and Parmesan sometimes comes with. Okay, you got the word now?
Yeah.
Chips. Here it is. CHIPS stands for cleaner power, higher surge capacity. You see the H there? You see how I'm going with this? You know, instant protection, peace of mind, and safer. So let's all go together here. 1, 2, 3. Cleaner power. This is a tough crowd I'm working with here. Higher surge capacity, instant protection, peace of mind, safer. So look, people are going to say, why is it worth $150? Why is it so expensive? Yeah, there's other information you may give, but if you can remember CHIPS, cleaner, higher protection, instant protection, peace of mind, safer. If you can remember those things, you've got something to talk about, at least at the first level. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about filtration. I want to say that this is the biggest single differentiator between Thor products and the boards, is this getting rid of that noise that's in the electrical line through filtration. It is not something, unfortunately, that you can see on the box. It does say max filters, but there is no recognized spec out there that you can. This is why this one is better than that one, okay? But it is the key and core area. Thor actually has 3 different levels of power filter technology. By the way, it's relatively easy to put a cheap filter in and filter noise out. The problem is you filter out everything else that you might want if you do it that way. So they actually use active technology in this one, where it actually follows the signal, so it minimally operates when it doesn't need to have much filtration, and it raises up the level of filtration when it requires it, okay? Active technology. It's the only product I know of that does that in this kind of price point. 3 different technologies and isolation. Let me illustrate that. I'm going to need the camera guy to come this way. So, you remember this? You all can hear that, right? I don't know if you're going to be able to hear on the camera there. I actually have to dial this down so you can see the number. There we go. Because it's actually overloading, there's so much noise here, which is to be expected with everything you have here, all right? Can anyone see that number? 170, you'll have to take my word for it if you can't see it. You can zoom in on it, okay? So I want you to see, oops, that's the junk that's coming in and being sent around the system here. Now I have right here an A12, which is this guy right here. This is the ultimate home theater product. So if you're selling somebody a home theater or audio system, this is the first one, maybe the second one, because that one might be the first one that you want to show them, because it's going to do this. Drum roll, please. Okay, that's a weak drum roll. I've switched it on. Ooh. This is ooh, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. Move on. You can come over later and see for yourself. Is that impressive? All right. That's getting rid of all that junk, which is wear and tearing on the chipset, as well as affecting signal transmission, picture, sound, and all that stuff. Right? It's working. It's 0.3 now. I want to show you something else. Anybody see that it changed a little bit? I'll just dial it up a little bit so it's more sensitive. Now you can hear some noise. What's happening here? I've plugged another device into the same board. So now it's filtering the noise from elsewhere, but the product is right next to it. It's being transmitted internally. Is there a fix for that? I just switched it to the other side. There's 3 separate power banks in this Thor. So the 2 sides are isolated from each other, and then there's one more up here that's isolated. You get that? And that's one of the problems with a normal filter set is products plugged into itself can actually create a problem. So if you're educating somebody or you're installing, you want to tell them to put anything that's a noisier type device, motors, bigger turn-ons, on a separate bank from receiving devices like amplifiers and TVs, because they will then boost that signal up. All right? Good? Impressive? Yes. So that's C, cleaner power. Power filter, not a power board. Does it do surge protection? Yes. Yes, it does. Much higher degree. So, anybody know what the joule ratings are typically on some of the ones over in the bins? 175. You got it. It's in the 100 to 150 range. This is 6,080. 20 plus times the amount of handling of power it can do in one instance, but it also means it'll last longer. One of the things that people don't realize is inside of these guys are little sacrificial devices. They call them MOVs, metal oxide varistors. Varistors, I think it's actually called. And they wear out over time. The more surges they get hit with, the shorter their lifespan. If it's 125, 150 joules, like this guy, that's what's inside. Is that a little shocking? That's your surge protection. You've just plugged in several $1,000s worth of stuff into that. When that wears out, what will you do? You're supposed to be watching that little red light because that little red light goes out. How many people think the red light burned out? They're supposed to throw this away because whatever protection it had, however minimal it was, is completely gone now. There's other problems with this, like it only is protecting the hot, not the positive, negative and ground, but that we'll get to that in another training. Okay? Oh, maybe you'd like to see the inside of an older Thor. Does this help? A little bit. But in either case, those metal bits you see inside there, they're actually the ones absorbing the excess spike energy. The higher the joule rating, the more they can take in one go, but also the longer they last. So you might have to replace this 3 or 4 times in the lifespan of this one, which helps you a little bit with the value story, as well as the filtration that you've had throughout. So H was higher protection. So cleaner power, higher protection. With me? What was the I? Instant. How fast does it react? Again, taking the boards over there, do you know how fast it reacts? Nope. Okay, darn, I thought you might have it. It's not on every box, but the ones over there I saw are 20 nanoseconds. Sounds pretty quick. All Thor products are 1, less than 1. That's better than a millionth of a second. You want your surge and spike protection to be instantaneous. 20 seconds is too long. Damage can occur in that time. The other factor is, where do you want the voltage clamping to start? We're supposed to have 240 out of the wall. At what point do you want your protection to kick in? You can't do it at 240 because that's your operating. You have to leave some headroom, by the way. If you look at commonly the boards out there, it'll start around 700 to 800 volts. Does that sound just a bit too high? So all Thor products are around 270. So they start instantly and they start immediately with excess voltage. So I was instant. Got two for the price of one there. What was the next one? Peace of mind. So what's the warranty on this one? They might give you a new one of these if the manager of Bunnings felt sorry for you, okay? Are they going to pay for the equipment you plugged in when this stops working? No. Absolutely not. Thor will. So all Thor products, just varies the amount. The lowest is $75,000. That'll cover you in almost all instances. Goes up to $300,000. If it fails to do the job, your equipment is damaged because of a power surge incident, you don't need to go to the homeowner's insurance and hassle with them and deal with your excess. Thor will take care of it. How often do you think that ever happens with Thor products? In 20 years, they can count on one hand the number of times they've actually had a claim. The products are extremely built. But peace of mind for your customer. What's the last one? Hint, it's on the screen. So chips, cleaner power, higher protection, instant protection, peace of mind, and safer. Okay? Back to my little illustration here. MOV, metal, oxide varistor, metal. When you put too many things into this, or it gets too much energy, what does metal do? It gets hot. It's hot inside it melts. When it melts, if you have anything else nearby, it can. All right, that's where a lot of the fires have come from. It's frequently a consumer problem that they plug too many things in, and or they've added a separate one of these plugged into this one with more stuff plugged into it. None of you have ever done this. But when you overload these get hot, and they are a potential safety hazard. How does the Thor work? Not only do they have the higher energy absorption spread out over more devices inside that you saw, but they then use ceramic casings over the MOVs. Ceramic, same stuff your wash tub's made out of. Fire retardant materials. So if it does get hot, it doesn't burst into flames, and it doesn't burn toxic if it does. All right? Costs more to do this stuff, but it's safer. So, by comparison, this is the package that this little guy came in. Retails around $22, $25. So this one retails for around $149. $100 rough difference, maybe a little more. Is it worth it? What are you getting? You're getting 3,000 joules instead of 150, 20 times the protection. You have full major surge. By the way, here's something. Did you ever read the fine print way down here? What it says is this is not a lightning arrestor. It says surge protection. I just assumed it was going to protect against major events. Nope. Told you right on the package it doesn't. You didn't read that, did you? So it covers you. If it fails, what do you get? Peace of mind. Okay, what do you get? It's adding line filtration. How much filtration do you see in this one? None whatsoever. It adds an aerial line protection. Okay, can't see it on that one. Aerial lines, pay TV lines. This one doesn't have the phone line. Oh, there it is on this side. If you have any lines that have copper in them coming into your system, from a rooftop aerial, from a cable from the wall, phone line, guess what? If lightning does strike anywhere on that system and gets into one of those lines, guess what it can do? Go into your product and then use your HDMI and other cables to go throughout the system. So you have to protect everything in. Oh, what about reaction time? Let's see, 800 volts is where it starts to work, and it does it in 20 nanoseconds. That's what you get. Is there a difference? How many of your customers knew that?
Have you turned that oven off, by the way?
Oh. Yes. I'm just testing your fire system here.
That's just got his pie in for lunch.
All right. Is there something better?
Yes, the big blunt. Yes, that's it.
Thank you. All right. What's the next stage? So what we've been talking about is line filtration and actually spike protection, not surge. We tend to use the word synonymously, but they're not. A spike is a very short-term event, small or large. It's over quickly. Boom, it's done. A surge is an extended amount of power or too little power. They both cause damage, sustained over a period of time. You've heard the expression brownouts? That's a surge. Even though it's not higher, it's a surge event. It's a change in the power for a sustained time. Okay? Are all homes equal in terms of power? Nope. I've lived in multiple places in Queensland because of the work I do. I've had the ability to measure the output of the wall. I have lived in places that were up around 258 on a given day. I knew even before I plugged in I had a problem because my light bulbs were burning out all the time, usually about one a week. It was actually burning up my light bulbs. If it's burning up my light bulbs, what do you suppose it's doing to the chipsets? Nothing good. I have also lived in homes where it could get to 230 on a good day with a tailwind downhill. Because depends on where you live, how far you are from a substation, it depends on a whole lot of other factors, and it goes up and down throughout the day. So I guarantee you right around 8:30, 9 o'clock, you saw a big change in the power as everyone got to work in their offices or home offices and started turning stuff on. Now the power companies are aware of this. They literally have people at the switch that turn on additional substations and route more power in the system because they have to. Because it is not something that's stored in a battery. They are producing the power and you are consuming it in the same moment. There's famous videos that you can look, by the way, if you go into YouTube and Google them, people that literally were working at power station, operators that had a TV set so they could see when the commercial breaks were. Because everyone ran to the kettle at the same time and they had to be ready to dial the power up. Otherwise the system would crash on them. So think about that variability. Is that good for your stuff? So you've spent a lot of money maybe on an AV system, gaming system, and you want the best performance and the longest life. The power conditioner is your next step. So the power conditioner is a two-piece system. It includes the A12, So it has all of that surge protection, the filtration I demonstrated earlier, and then it has this big boy, and this big boy is actually constantly taking the power and either boosting it up or cutting it back down, so it is constantly, whatever this is constantly either 240, or there's a switch on the back you can set it for 220. And that is because some products want 220, not 240. So you have that option. But I've got a little device over here that lets me actually vary this. When I plugged this in directly, it was around 230. So that's where I set this. You can see though, no matter the fact, this is actually delivering 240 to the products plugged into it. Watch it, I'll take it down a little bit more. You heard it working there. All right. Any change here? What if I go the other direction? Any change? So if I want ultimate performance and lifespan, yes, it's $2,000, but this is the ultimate audiophile, videophile, home theater dream product. Spike protection, line conditioning, filtration. All for the low, low price of $2,000. We sell about 50 of those a month. There are customers out there that understand the value of that. Is that, by the way, expensive for true line conditioning? If you Google some of the high-end audio salons, you'll find they go $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for a product like this to give you the ultimate perfection. It is a law of diminishing returns, though. The more you spend, smaller and smaller differences. This will get you a long way towards that nirvana. So, running through the line now. So what we've done thus far is we've talked about the size of the opportunity, we've talked about the size of the problem, we've talked about what makes Thor different. Any questions on that part? Are we happy? Are you happy at home? Send a letter. All right, so filters. If I start by looking at the range, and you have some cheat sheets in front of you there, and this, so you have 2 pages there that will kind of show this. This page is just the board type products on one page. The other one, flip it over and upside down, is starting with the PS10 there, with line conditioning. But if you follow along, ultimate filtration is the A12. All right, it's $359-ish thereabouts by itself, coupled with this for a little over $2,000. Okay, that's my best filtration. It has 3 different power banks, or isolation banks, I should say. It has the maximum filtration, 6,000 joules, everything else that we talked about in chips, right? Instant protection, etc. It cleans up to 40% more noise. Now, what happens if I don't want this? I've just put this beautiful home theater, I mounted the speakers in the wall, I got a projector maybe on the ceiling because I don't want that big AV shrine. I don't want this board visible. Can I get that filtration without this? Yes, I can. Sorry if you said that, I couldn't hear you. It's in this exciting little box here, which will get lost, I'm sure, in the warehouse. You put this in the cavity behind the point. And this will deliver the same thing this delivers. Obviously, it's just to that point, but you've got the same filtration out of sight. Okay? If I want protection in the home, I can have the Sparky install this on my circuit board. And now I have that surge protection at that point for everything, and I have filtration at that point to everything downstream. Okay? Does require a Sparky, it's not a DIY. So, A12, ultimate home theater. If I have a need for good filtration, maybe a good AV system, but it's not the same level of performance or my budget, just I gotta get one notch below, then you go to the B8. The B8 offers almost the same protection, 2 isolated banks instead of 3, a little less in terms of the filter. It's not active, but it is multi-stage, right? So it's not for the higher end guy, but it's a good workhorse. And does it have instant protection? Peace of mind? Yep. Safety? Yep. Everything else the same. That'll be the same all the way through the line. Oh, by the way, there we go. A12. It cleaned the power, whatever is the result that finally makes my system worth the money I've spent on it. Think about that again. That's what you're offering people. All right. Now, I did mention, of course, the PS10. There is a PS20 on the left side there with the handles. PS20 is a 20 amp circuit, and instead of using an external board like this one, it uses that circuit board mounted product. All right, so this is not a DIY where you give it to a consumer. They've got to have someone to install that one. All right, if the PS20, and I think it runs 2900 for that one, but it's also a 20 amp, so it delivers higher voltage, which will come into play in some home theaters. Here's a customer talking about the power station. The resultant effect has been nothing short of remarkable. Pristine background for music to happen. Thank you so much. I like that thank you. Thank you for making me spend $2,000. All right, so PS10, PS20 20 amp in wall, B8, 2 banks instead of 3. And then, oh, let's see, there's another problem. Check this one out. The B8 solved this one. Would the customer have necessarily thought? How many hours do you think might have gone into trying to track this problem down? How many technicians might have been involved in trying to fix this problem? Clean up the power, it went away. Not going to say that happens every time, but I will say that if you clean the power up, you will sometimes eliminate these kind of problems. Other times you will at least isolate that it's not power. There's something else involved. All right, now these filters I kind of look as a family. So they're the 2 E1s and of course the C2. And the difference between these two is a very small change in color, which is why we got 2 of the same one out yesterday. And the fact that the E/41U, E1/45U, sorry, even I get it wrong, has 2 USB charging ports on it. The U standing for USB. They are 4.8, so they are rapid chargers. Okay, so this is small office, home office, or if they're, using one of their phones or something as a source to the TV, they might install that around the TV. Or the same thing, basically, without the USB. And then the C2, which, how many places could this little guy go? All right. Long cord with a flat plug, which means I can push my wall unit or my fridge or washer or what have you up close to the wall. Do I have chips with this one? Cleaner power, higher protection, instant protection, peace of mind, and safer with a long cord, which means I can stick this and get around to my fridge, my washer dryer, my coffee machine, anything, and of course small little AV system, maybe a small IT system that I only need a couple points for. And it's the least expensive, but I don't sacrifice anything else to get there. Rack mount. So there are 2 rack mounts in the lineup. They are exactly the same except for one key difference, aside from the price. The one on the left there has the ability to turn on and off each point remotely. So if he's on his phone and he had the Thor software installed, he could be turning the power on and off right now to this building if you had your building plugged into this. It also has an automatic turn on switch 1, which means if you're running an internet or something, your server goes down because of power cut off, it will come back on automatically. Or you can dial in and turn it back on if you wish, or turn it off if you wish. Okay? So rack mountable, they slide back in the system if you want to allow room for plugs at the front. And you of course have the IEC in the back. So I know you do some rack systems, so this is a good companion for that. And if you needed to have that functionality where you can control it remotely from anywhere in the world with your phone, you can have that. Okay? Call it rack guard. RF and RFIQ are the 2 models. Now hardwired we touched on before. So in-wall cavity for filtration. 2 options on the circuit board. Difference is 20 amp and 30 amp. Okay? If I missed anything there, nope. Is that good so far? Now, I said this before. You've had this training. Are you going to go out here and sell a lot more Thor now? Because the customer knows you know more and they're going to come in and ask for it, right? No. So that customer over there, the next 10 in the door, the next 100 after that don't know more than they knew before. So who's going to have to introduce it? Right? So is it like, how about this? Hey, I'm Rex. You want to buy a Thor?
Of course.
We're demonstrating this live. That's probably not going to be very effective. So how can I get power into the conversation knowing that for most of my customers, this was not a consideration, but they deserve to know that there are differences and have an educated choice? How do I get it into the conversation?
Ask them what they run in their current unit on.
Simple question. How are you plugging your stuff in now? You can vary that question in all different ways. But the simple thing is just ask the question. Don't start talking about a product and qualifying, well, what was the last TV? How do you have, what the other components you're plugging in, without saying, how are you plugging it in? In most cases, the customer is going to look at you quizzically because no one's ever asked this before. All right? But you could ask a question like any of those three, okay? Or your version. However, how are you currently plugging in your system? Are you plugging it straight in the wall? Do you have a strip or do you have a power filter? Doesn't matter what they answer, does it? I like that one because very often I get what's a power filter? Oh, thanks for asking. And it gives me my segue. But it doesn't matter. What you don't want to ask is this. You don't need a surge protector, do you? I hear it all the time. Or, almost as bad, do you have a surge protector? Or, do you need a surge protector? What's the problem with all three of those? First of all, the first problem is yes or no. No, I do not need a surge protector. But, now you got a problem. Now you've got to overcome them and make them wrong. Oh, you're ignorant or cheap, which is it? Right? So what I don't want to do is ever ask you a yes or no question. I want to ask you a question you must answer with something else. I've never thought about it. I just plug it in the wall. Great. Glad I found that out. You don't want to plug a product like this straight in the wall. Doesn't make them wrong. You just found out something. Oh, I have a surge protector. Do you remember the brand or how much you spent on it? $20. Okay. What you have is a strip. For this product, I'm going to suggest a filter. It doesn't matter what they say. You've given the importance of it in the sale is something else to be considered. Does that make sense? And you've given yourself a place to segue. The reason I asked that is, with products like these, they're very susceptible to power variations and noise. If you want to get the maximum life and the best performance out of these, you'll want some version of a filter. Now what can I do? Where am I in the sale, by the way? Am I asking for money? No, I'm not. So I have less resistance. And I now get to do something else. I get to set the stage. You know, we've got different options. They go from $100 to $3,000. I'll show you your options later. You're going to want to get one of them. What have I now done by doing that?
Put a price in the market already at $100.
Minimum 100. Yeah, I've set the stage. It's going to cost them something. We can still argue about it, but it's going to cost something. And by the way, the worst thing that could happen is they might buy a $50 one. I don't get the sale, but you get a sale. And they probably bought a better one than they were going to buy. Or they bought one that they weren't going to buy because no one was going to ask them about power. They weren't going to bring it up because they hadn't thought about it. But they were going to go down to Bunnings tomorrow and pick one up. All right? But you said it, so now you're in the hunt. And you've also said it in the qualifying, which made it important. It's part of the decision process. And I threw this big number at you, which makes $300 now seem, oh, thank God. But if I'd started at $300, I would have gotten this. Right? You're nuts. I've never spent more than $30 in my life. Yeah, I understand. That's why I want to bring this one out. Power is bigger and more important and potentially more expensive than you ever knew. That's why I'm here. You justify educating the customer. right? Because if you don't educate them, if they get all their information online on the web and come in and just, they don't need you. Right? Your value is in teaching people what they didn't know before and guiding them to an educated decision. All right, enough on that. Here's some more qualifying type questions illustrating how I like to do it, right? What I might like to say. The next thing is I give them that choice. Now you heard me allude to it already. I said it's from $100 to $3,000. Now which one do I show first?
This one.
See, there's the other problem with if I wait until later to talk about it, I'm trapped because if you say, do you want a surge protector? What's the first question? How much? Which one do I talk about? Do I take you to this one? No. Do I take you to, it doesn't, I'm stuck, I don't know where to go. If I say there's a range, may I show you the best one first? Why not? I'm just getting choices, and I can even come to this one. This is one of the reasons I want you to leave it on the floor. Because I want you guys to use this when you have a conversation in the store to open people's minds about what's possible and raise their price ceiling. Because if you raise the price ceiling, the price floor will come up as well. Now, you may be selling them something for $500. This really is more than they need. You can say that. Listen, this is more than you need. This is, but maybe there's something at home that I don't know about that might make sense. But this is probably more than you need. But I just wanted you to know that they can be like this, $3,000, $2,000 for ultimate. But the three I was thinking about for you were these three, or these three, or these three. You follow? But I'm always going to give you three choices. May I show you the best first? I like this one because it gives you the filtration, et cetera, et cetera. If you need to spend a little less, this one here is just a little less in terms of filtration. You don't have the rapid USB charging, and this one will get the job done. It's every bit as safe as the other two. It will protect against surge and spike, just doesn't filter out as much noise. What did I just change the question to? It's not whether, it's which. It's not yes or no, I want one or I don't want one, is do I want the expensive one, the medium price one, or the low price one? I took away the no option, made it harder for that one. You follow? It does not have to take a lot of time either. It can be just as quick as I just did it. Another reason to have the packages out so you can actually physically bring them to them. And illustrate them. And by the way, I also like to do this a lot. You didn't get that on camera, good. All right, the reason I want to do that is touch equals ownership. And if I can get them to touch the product, they're a long way towards psychologically imagining using that product and where it would fit in their home and how, et cetera, okay? It also means that they're starting to read all the good stuff on the box, which helps. Okay, so best, better, good, three choices. Start with best first. It's far easier to come downhill than go back up. I show him the one for $100. He goes, this is great. I go, oh, well, if you're that easy, let me show, that's harder. Next thing, this has 6,000 joules. Yeah, exactly. So what? You may know. You went to this wonderful, exhilarating training where you learned so much that you didn't know before, but your customer didn't. You say 6,000 joules, it has exactly zero value to them. You say this has 3 isolated filter banks. So what? Just imagine your customer says, so what, to anything you say. If you cannot answer that, then you're still talking features. If you say something that's benefit, so this has 6,000 joules, what that means is really it's 20 times the protection of that board that you're currently using. It'll last longer, it's more likely to handle big events, you can rest easy, even if you're not home to unplug everything in a big storm, doesn't matter, all through time, you're protected. That starts to build benefit, and benefit is what I trade for money. If I don't see benefits, I don't see how it changes my life, I don't trade. Follow? And that's where the big struggle is with salespeople and customers, is when we forget and think they know what we know and only shorthand with the features. We've got to define what the benefit is to get value. So use benefit statements like those on the left, or here's some examples. Put them in your words, your language. If you know something about the customer, you can dial this in. If you were talking to them and it happens to be a TV or home theater customer, you can say, listen, you told me you love movies. This is going to make sure you get all the blacks, the colors. When they transition in those sports scenes, and when the camera pans, it's more likely to track well. You see what I'm doing there? He or she is now imagining in their home that benefit. Okay. Use the brand story. It's Australian, New Zealand designed. It is not a Me Too product. It's from a specialist company. Whatever analogy you like to use, Rolls-Royce, Mercedes-Benz, whatever is the epitome of technology in any category, this is it for power. All right? That's often the shorthand way we use. All right? You can use visuals, whether it's the packaging or what you saw me use here, right? Because they can actually see the inside. This is kind of one of those picture says 1,000 words kind of thing. Remember CHIPS, which stood for, this is hard, isn't it? Cleaner power, higher protection. He's bored, he's out, he's done. Peace of mind and safer. Okay. How often do I offer it? Who doesn't deserve to know? Who don't you care about? Which day do you not need to make more money? All right, and remember, success is 2 or 3 out of 10. That's why a baseball player that bats 300 is a millionaire. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.